What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Passable Ball Knowledge Podcast. My name is Sam. Thank you for joining me today. Today, I will be unveiling my mock draft number one. Aaron is not here, he's traveling the world, so I will be unveiling my solo mock draft number one. I'm a little bit further ahead in the process than he is. But I'm really excited to dive into this draft. Really, some a unique draft in the sense of a lot of difficult evaluations to make as far as the most talented players are at positions that are not valuable, and then there's so many edge rushers in this draft. It's a really difficult class to evaluate. I honestly just want to dive right in because there's so much to talk about here with this class. The one pick where there's really nothing to talk about is Fernando Mendoza, going number one to the Raiders. This is a obvious pick. Mendoza is the Heisman winner, reigning Heisman winner, went undefeated in college this past season. Just national champion, elite stats. I think there's a notion that Mendoza is perhaps not deserving of the number one pick. People have been calling him Jared Goff, who, by the way, was a number one pick, so I find that argument kind of faulty. Um, I think Mendoza really checks a lot of boxes, though. Like, this guy has size. It's like 6'5", big, bulky, physical build. Um, Elite leader, winner in college, has this production to back it up. Mobile enough. He's not necessarily a mobile quarterback, but when you need him to move, he can get out there and run. I'm kind of, like, I'm trying to think of a quarterback who compares to him athletically. Like, you kind of think like maybe Trevor Lawrence, but I think Trevor Lawrence is a little bit more athletic than him. I don't really know. It's kind of in the middle of, he's right, probably average speed as far as NFL quarterbacks go. Maybe, I mean, honestly, like a good athletic comp is like Sam Darnold, like someone who, when his back is against the wall, he has the wheels to get out and move, but maybe he's not a guy who's super comfortable running or the most confident runner. I think the one knock on Mendoza that you could really make is his arm talent is good, not great. But I think his arm talent is good enough to have him be good enough for the number one pick. The Raiders are going to pick him here. They absolutely need a quarterback. Mendoza is the only quarterback that I have going in the first round of this mock. So you got to get the quarterback. Mendoza's more than deserving of that. It's all but confirmed that Fernando Mendoza will be the pick, and then everything after that is kind of up in the air. That's why it's such a fun draft to mock, break down. I've done so many mocks where you have guys going in like top 15, and then I have mocks where I have that same guy going out of the first round. Like, it is so difficult to gauge how you feel about these players. And let's just dive right into number two. With the second pick in the NFL draft, the New York Jets select Arvell Reese, linebacker slash edge rusher from Ohio State University. Arvell Reese tested very well today. I will say I made this mock before all of those guys today tested, or on Thursday, because I will be posting this on Friday. All the edge rushers, defensive linemen, and linebackers tested. I did this mock before that. So I was going back and forth between Reese and another edge player. The Jets traded away Jermaine Johnson, which pretty much sets them up perfectly to take an edge rusher. Reese, to me, feels like, it feels like he's a guy who can play multiple positions, and a lot of the times when you get those guys, they feel like a tweener. They feel like a guy who, jack of all trades, master of none type thing. That's kind of where I always fall in those guys. Like, oh, this guy can play safety and boundary corner, but like he's good at both, but he's not great at both. And you're like, oh, okay, so what's the point? Or, this guy can play uh tight end and running back, and you're like, okay, that's weird. I mean, he's not really good at either. He just does both. Reese, it does feel like an exception. He is exceptionally athletic. I think ran in the mid 4.4s today. I think his 10-yard split was like a 1.51 or something. Like, it was elite. Him and Sonny Styles really lit it up on the linebacker end. Reese, to me, feels like a guy who, just whatever you want him to do, I expect he will play edge at the next level. Whatever you want him to do, I feel like he's probably the most athletically gifted edge in this draft, and he has the tools to be truly elite. And above all else, I think that he has the production as well to back it up. This is another difficult part of this draft. There are a lot of edge rushers where you have to pick between the tape and the athleticism. Tape, athleticism. Like, I'm looking at multiple players right now that I can immediately think of that might fit that bill. In general, I think Reese is the best edge rusher in this class. I think he has a very good case to be the best player in this class, and I think he will likely play edge at the next level. But he's athletic enough, talented enough to really play off-ball linebacker or edge rusher at a above average level right away to a potentially elite level later on in his career. I love Reese to the Jets here, and I think he's just the best player available at the biggest need for the Jets that they've opened up. So we'll see where that goes, but I really, really like Arvell Reese to the Jets here. Pick number 3, the Arizona Cardinals select Spencer Fano, tackle out of Utah. Fano is a 6'6", 308-pound, mostly right tackle in college. They could try to kick him to left, although Paris Johnson's there. I don't think that's what they need. I think if you're the Cardinals, this roster is devoid of real ability. This roster is filled with a bunch of like good players who maybe you can squint and see them ultimately becoming like high end above average contributors. In my mind, this Cardinals team, especially offensively, the talent just isn't there. That they're extremely weak in the trenches. They do not really have a quarterback. Their run game was awful last year. Really from top to bottom, this Cardinals offense needs to be improved. I could potentially in a world where he really tests well and interviews well, I could see Jeremiah Love potentially slipping up to this spot, the best running back in the class. However, I think the ability to tell Arizona that hey, in a division where you have the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers who have Nick Bosa, to get your bookend tackles with Paris Johnson on the left, Spencer Fano on the right, is a really intriguing pitch to Arizona to begin to build the base of your offense. And, ultimately, I mean, I imagine that you're probably preparing to slot in a young quarterback there at some point in the future. What better way to improve than to beef up the trenches and get two truly great young tackles on either side of the ball? I think Fano is, you're going to hear him and another tackle's name that I will mention in a couple picks going here. I think Fano's probably the pick because I think he's a little bit more naturally going to slide in at tackle, where the other guy may have some questions that he might have to kick into guard. I think Arizona ultimately wouldn't mind if he has to kick into guard, but I think tackle at number 3 is just so much more of a valuable choice to Arizona that Spencer Fano is going to be the pick here at number 3 for the Cardinals. At pick number 4, the Tennessee Titans, who did acquire Jermaine Johnson today. I still think that they are going to pick an edge rusher. I have them selecting David Bailey, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. Bailey is a really weird evaluation. I don't love him. I think it's good. I think all in all, Bailey is a good player, elite pass rusher, not strong enough to be an every down player to defend the run. That does give me some pause about potentially taking him at number 4. But in general, Bailey is a guy who has a ton of hype around him right now, especially from the scouting, world. I think people feel as though Bailey has this like extra gear. I think he had like 15 sacks in college this year. The production is really, really great. The athleticism, especially speed wise, is really, really good. I'm just worried about his play strength and whether he will be a every down pass rusher or edge rusher in the NFL. Like, he might not be strong enough to play on early downs considering how weak he can be against the run, especially imagining him against NFL level tackles. That is a concern. But Bailey's stock has been really high as of late, really rising. I mean, there's some buzz that he could go number 2. Ultimately, I picked Arvell Reese to the Jets over Bailey, but this is not necessarily me saying, hey, what would I do? This is me projecting if I had to guess what would happen. Bailey has a lot of fans. So I think he's going to go number 4 to Tennessee here, whether I like it or not. I mean, he's an undeniably good pass rusher. Tennessee needs trench help, especially getting after the quarterback. Jermaine Johnson, I don't think prohibits them from taking an edge rusher. I think his contract expires after this year, anyways. So it's like it's not like they're only going to be picking for this year. This is a team in a rebuild. I could see Bailey really slotting in very well as a good pass rusher. Like this guy will be a great pass rusher. I'm just nervous about the every down ability and whether you pick a situational pass rusher at number 4 in the draft. We'll see. At number 5, the New York Giants select Francis Mauigoa, tackle out of Miami. Mauigoa is the guy who I've been going back and forth on, like, who should the Cardinals take at 3, because I think they will take a tackle. Is it going to be Fano or Mauigoa? I think Mauigoa, to me, has some concerns that he might have to play guard in the NFL. I think teams will give him a chance at tackle. I think the Giants should give him a chance at tackle. Mauigoa is a really, really just solid player. I think my mindset for the Giants here is Jackson Dart. I think only started like 11 games last year, and he still got sacked like the ninth highest amount in the NFL or something. He was on the ground a lot, dealt with concussions, consistent injuries. Jermaine Illuminor, their right tackle, is both aging and a free agent, and even if they bring in Illuminor, they don't really have a right guard right now. Mauigoa could, if you do decide to bring back Illuminor on like a 2-year deal. Illuminor is like 31. By the end of that deal, he'll be 33. Maybe you let Mauigoa play right guard for a few years, kick him out to right tackle when Illuminor decides to leave. However, he could just leave this offseason, and then you'll need to protect Jackson Dart. I think this offense has weapons. I think their defense has enough talent to get by. I think this is all about the trenches in this league. You got to keep your young quarterback confident, healthy, feeling good, and I think Mauigoa is the most natural fit here for the Giants at number 5. Pick number 6, I have the Cleveland Browns selecting Carnell Tate, wide receiver out of Ohio State. For me, I think Tate is the number 1 wide receiver in the class. He's probably the most natural wide receiver 1 talent in this draft. Good size, pretty great explosive playability, route runner, good hands, just does everything at a very solid, consistent level. I think the one main concern here is he played with Jeremiah Smith in college the last couple of years. So, like, how do teams face him? How does he match up when he's playing team's number 1 corner rather than the number 2? I find that critique a little ticky-tacky, but in general, I think Tate is a good player. The Browns can keep him in Ohio. I think if Mauigoa or Fano is on the board, the Browns take them because I don't know if anyone knows this, but the Browns do not have a offensive lineman from last season currently under contract. They will have 5 new starters. I mean, unless they decide to re-sign some people, they are currently projected to have 5 new starters on the offensive line. They do have 2 first-round picks, so I think most people have been saying it's like wide receiver tackle for their mix. I do have that happening, but with the top end tackles off the board, I think they go get the wide receiver 1 in this class, Carnell Tate, keep him in Ohio, and bring in a playmaker that is really needed in the receiving core for this Browns team, who is lacking explosives in a really, really serious way. With the 7th pick in the NFL draft, the Washington Commanders select Ruben Bain Jr., edge rusher out of Miami. Bain, as a pure player, is probably better than David Bailey. There were times in games this year where he would just take over a game for Miami. Super powerful, great leverage. I think listen, there's always a reason why really good players, every year there are really good players who slide down the board for whatever reason it may be. I think that reason for Ruben Bain is his arms are really short. I think he has 30.5-inch arms or something, measured in today at the combine. Did not participate in any of the drills. In general, I think for a guy who might honestly be a tweener between an edge rusher and a defensive tackle, that might not be a terrible thing because he plays with so much leverage. But how much is that power going to be translatable when you're playing NFL level tackles and NFL level guards who are much stronger and much more technically sound and are much bigger and have longer arms and can maybe get into the chest of Ruben Bain easier than some college tackles could do at that level. I think Bain is a great player. The Commanders desperately need edge rush. This is an edge rush filled class. I think I did contemplate the idea of having Bain make a little bit of a longer slide just because I think teams will overthink the arm length. And I do think that there is a serious concern there, not necessarily with the arm length, but with his play style. Like, how translatable is that pure power kind of technique, especially in the early years of his career when he would be playing up against tackles who are much stronger than the ones he played in college? Like, I wonder how translatable that is. But regardless, I really think Bain is a super, super talented player who will instantly make this Commanders defense better. They're probably going to have to make a decision about Deron Payne, potentially cutting him. And then their sack leader from last year was Von Miller, who's 37 and will probably leave this offseason. So in general, I think by bringing in Ruben Bain, you're bringing in the probably instantly most talented player on your defensive line. And I think Bain is just a really, really solid player who might slip a little bit because of his physical limitations. So that is number 7. With the 8th pick in the NFL draft, the New Orleans Saints select Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame. On a pure player basis, there's an argument to be made that Love is the best player in this draft. Super, super explosive, dynamic player. Just, the speed, especially, it's not really like Bijan Robinson, who has these like he'll like explode within like 3 yards of the line of scrimmage, and he's so shifty in that way, and that's where he really gets his explosiveness from. For Love, it's when he gets past that first level, he can absolutely destroy you with his breakaway speed, and like his long distance speed is truly like a game changer at the running back position. I think there's just so much talent here. There's just the concern of is this a position that you have to take this early? I think for the Saints, this could make a lot of sense when you think of Alvin Kamara will likely either retire or be cut very, very soon, if not this offseason. I think the Saints are trying to build around Tyler Shuck, and I don't love any of the other wide receivers here for the Saints. I think you have Chris Olave as a wide receiver 1. I think that's good enough, and there's some good wide receiver depth down the board in this class to, maybe rationalize picking a receiver later or, signing one this offseason, anything like that. I think back to when Kellen Moore was with the Eagles, that offense was so good because they had a dynamic playmaker at running back. And sure, yes, that offensive line was also great, but having Saquon Barkley, who can take a 10-yard run and make it a 30-yard touchdown, doesn't hurt. I think Love is a fantastic player, a high-end playmaker who will instantly raise the floor of this Saints offense and will give them a much-needed run attack and playmaker in the run game that they currently do not have, that will make Tyler Shuck's life a whole lot easier. And that guy is Jeremiah Love. Also, I think it factors in this is a pretty bad running back class. Once you get past Jeremiah Love, you're talking about like Jadarian Price, Emmett Johnson, Jonah Coleman. Like, there's some good running backs who are maybe don't project very naturally as like number ones. I think Love is like the true bell cow of this class, and it's not only that he's a bell cow, he might be the best player in the draft just on a pure talent basis. The question is the positional value there for any teams? I think Love is talented enough that I don't see him dropping out of the top 10, unlike some of the other really talented players in this draft who are maybe at less valuable positions. With the 9th pick, the Kansas City Chiefs, in an unusual situation here, take Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver out of USC. Lemon is probably the second best receiver in this class, at least on if I were to put a board together. I probably like Lemon the second best of the wide receiver trio that's at the top of this class. Um, the Chiefs are in a precarious situation here. They could be in a situation where they take a right tackle, but like the tackle play after Maui Noah and Fano is not great. It's not super awesome or anything like that. It's not nothing that the Chiefs would be super excited about. I could see them going edge, but like, none of like the three top edge rushers are off the board. Maybe they go safety or linebacker, but I don't know how much those positions feel valuable. I think for me, the big thing with the Chiefs is that their offense just really didn't feel explosive last year. And I think if Jeremiah Love is on the board at this spot, they probably take him. But I think they get the next best thing to add explosiveness to their offense in Mekhi Lemon, who, yes, the 2025 tape is a little bit less explosive than the 2024, but the 2024 is really, really fun. I think he has the potential to be a really good playmaker, and I also think that he does maybe project more as a slot guy. But that being said, Rashee Rice is in a precarious legal situation right now. You don't know if he'll be suspended or even cut by the time the season starts next year and maybe can't play. So with that being said, I think Lemon can play outside if you need him to, and regardless, if you want him to play in the slot, Rashee Rice might not be around for too much longer with his current situation. So I like Lemon a lot. I think the Chiefs just, they're kind of in a weird situation where they're at 9, but maybe they don't have a ton of needs. Like that's the situation that they're at. It's kind of weird, but in general, I think Lemon just makes the most sense here of all the players available. With the 10th pick, the Cincinnati Bengals select Caleb Downs, safety out of Ohio State. This is another one of those guys who has a case to be the best pure player in the draft, but is that a position that most people just don't care about? Safety is a position that, if you know how to use them, they're really valuable, but in general, I think for most NFL defenses, safety is probably a position that doesn't feel that important, doesn't feel like you must have a true game changer at the position. And I like Downs, and everybody likes Downs, even loves Downs a lot. I think he is not necessarily at the top end athlete, but he's just so sound altogether. I think that the Bengals are in need of defensive playmakers on the back end. You could consider corner, you could consider edge rush. I think in general, though, Downs is the best available player on the board and fills a need. I think that's invaluable for the Bengals, who have just struggled to put together competent defenses the last few years. Go get Caleb Downs, who slots in literally in a make or break year for the Bengals, slots in day one as like he might be the best player on that defense out of the gate. Like that's how good he is, and that's how bad this Bengals defense is, and how little talent they have. So I really like Downs. I think it makes a ton of sense here for him to slot in at 10 to the Bengals. Number 11, I'm experimenting here. I've had a lot of mocks that have kind of had the same order of players. I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I have Jermod McCoy out of Tennessee being the number 1 corner off the board in this draft. Jermod McCoy had a elite, unbelievable 2024. And then tears his ACL preseason this year. Doesn't play a snap. He will not test at the combine. I imagine he will get a ton of physicals done. Presuming that he is ready to go and the physicals look good, McCoy, I think, is a better athlete than the other corner available in this draft. He is a more natural player, and ultimately, I think has better film from a single season than the other major corner in this draft. I think in general, if the physicals check out for McCoy, it's going to be tough for teams to not take him, especially teams that need corner. I think his injury caps him perhaps from being like a top 7 pick, but for Miami, they need corner desperately. They need back end help. This defense is not good. And McCoy, to me, feels like the number 1 corner in the class. So I really like this pick for Miami. I originally had them in pretty much in every mock taking Mansour Delane. I'll explain why I don't have them taking Delane when I talk about where Delane is selected here. which is not too far away. But regardless, I thought I'd switch it up, and I kind of like the idea that, hey, if McCoy's physicals check out well, teams are going to have trouble not picking him high. At number 12, the Dallas Cowboys select Sonny Styles, linebacker out of Ohio State. This is now the, oh boy, fourth Ohio State player off the board in the top 12. Styles is the talk of the town today. I believe, according to RAS, Relative Athletic Score, he is the most athletic linebacker to ever play the position. I think jumped 43 and a half inches at like 6'5", 245 pounds in the vertical jump, and then ran like a 4.5, a 4.47, and had like a 1.5 10-yard split, which is elite. This guy's a freak of nature. Like, he could probably play edge if you need him to. I love Sonny Styles. Super, super just stout linebacker, sideline to sideline. He's also like the rarest athlete we've ever seen at the position, both from a size and literal athleticism standpoint. I just question how much teams are going to want to take a linebacker that high. Like, where I see his market really starting, I don't know how much the combine is going to change how scouts view him, because it was pretty much known that this guy was a freak of nature athlete. I don't know if he tested so unbelievable that maybe that shoots his stock up. I think he tested near or just above where they were expecting him to test, where I was expecting him to test. And I think teams are just going to be hesitant about taking a linebacker that early. It's just not a very valuable position, and teams have had success taking linebackers way down the board and just thriving there. But for Dallas, Sonny Styles can be an elite blitzer in the scheme. They desperately need linebacker play. It's pretty bad. DeMarvion Overshown is a good player. He's dealt with some pretty serious injuries. I think Sonny Styles adds another gear to that defense that they do not have, and just more talent to that defense that they do not have. And I think he's awesome. I think he's an unbelievable player, unbelievable prospect who will maybe just slide a little bit further than he should because of that positional value. I think Dallas stops his slide at 12. With the 13th pick in the NFL draft, the Los Angeles Rams select Mansour Delane. So I was just talking about him out of LSU, the corner. Delane is a good player. I think teams will really have trouble stomaching his athletic profile. He will probably run in the mid to late 4.5s with below average measurables. And I think specifically arm length is a concern for Delane. He's a very good player. The tape looks very good. I don't think he will fall out of the first round because his tape is just too good. But in the NFL, you have to be able to put your hands on people and, be physical and use your size. And I don't know if Delane has that. I think the Rams make a ton of sense because he can just slot right into that zone scheme and just have him be your number one corner right out the gate, because that Rams cornerback room is pretty rough with a good amount of free agents. But that being said, I think Delane, there is a world where Delane slips because of his athletic ability. I think that he's just too good of a player, though, for the Rams to pass up here with such a glaring need at corner. I think a lot of people will debate him and McCoy. I think the only real case that he has over Jermon McCoy to be the number one corner is the fact that he actually played last year. So it's going to be interesting to see how people approach that and how scouts view that as well. With the 14th pick, the Baltimore Ravens select, this is one I'm getting a little risky with, Caleb Banks, defensive lineman out of Florida. Caleb Banks is a 6'6.5", 335-pound defensive tackle with 35-inch arms and 11-inch hands. A literal freak of nature who, at the combine today, I thought moved very well. Banks' 2024 tape is really solid, and you can see, like, at his size, he is a elite mover and just so powerful and rare athletic specimen here. And he got hurt last year, was dealing with a foot injury that kind of nagged him all year. I think Florida kind of pushed him out there when maybe he wasn't ready. And it was just a generally rough year for Florida. But Banks is so talented, and he looked healthy enough today out there moving. I think the athletic, like this is a once in a generation build with the movement skills that he has, and he has played good football before in his career, just coming off that injury, which I think he looks good for. I think Banks is going to shoot up draft boards throughout this process. I think he's super, super talented, and I think he is a rare type of player at this position. Number 15, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Cassius Howell, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M. This is one I'm a little questionable on. I don't know how I viewed Cassius Howell. He is a pass rush specialist who's very, very small, very, very light, with short arms. That's a tough thing. He had 12 sacks in the SEC, though. I think the Bucs have edge rush talent. They just don't have people that can get to the quarterback. I think when you're talking about bend, when you're talking about speed, when you're talking about agility, Howell checks all those boxes, even if he is small. I think the Bucs are a team that are going to be looking to get to the playoffs next year. Howell's a guy that can get to the quarterback. They really had trouble getting to the passer last year. And like I said, when you look at their roster top to bottom, their edge rush talent just is not there. So I think when you're talking about that, you got to get someone who can get after the quarterback. I think it's either him or maybe a tight end. I actually don't have a tight end going in the first round of this mock. I'm kind of back and forth on how teams will view Kenyon Sadiq and whether they'll take him in the first round. I think he's a very good player, but I'm not sure how teams view him, and I'm not sure how teams view the tight end class in general. I think Howell's super, super talented as a pass rusher. He's kind of like David Bailey, but less athletic and less explosive as a pass rusher. So he's a very good pass rusher who just doesn't have the size. But I think the Bucs are willing to pick him because they need that pass rush. I'm questioning how his stock will look after the combine with how he measured in. So we'll see there, although he did test fairly well. And this will be the last pick of this video. I'm going to break this into two parts because video is running a little long already here. Jordan Tyson to the New York Jets at pick 16 will round out the first half of this mock. I'll post the second half later in the day or tomorrow. Tyson is a very good player. Explosive, good hands, good route runner. Check, 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 check. There is a world where Jordan Tyson falls out of the first round. Because he has real, genuine, honest, scary injury concerns. Like there's always a player who they're starting to slip, and you're like, why is this guy falling? He's a good player. And then you see the tweet from Ian Rappaport. It's like teams, when they brought him in for the physical, they saw this in his knee or in his ankle. I believe for Tyson's like foot ankle injuries. I could see a world where teams are really scared by his injuries that he's had throughout his career. The talent is undeniably there. There's a case to be made that he might be a better pure prospect than Mekhi Lemon as far as like if you're looking for a wide receiver one. But that being said, I think the injury concerns are scary here for the Jets. I could see them. I originally had them like taking like defensive tackles. Like this was a spot I would have like Caleb Banks going or even a Peter Woods. But in general, I think after the trade today with T'Vondre Sweat, they're probably out of that. They already took an edge rusher earlier in the class. They need playmakers across from Garrett Wilson, who is their leading receiver with like 300 yards. And he played like 4 games last year, which is still a crazy stat that their leading receiver had like 5 games under his belt. In general, I think Tyson is just too enticing of a prospect to pass up, even with the injury concerns. Keep an eye out, though, because this could be a guy who takes a free fall with how these injuries are for him. And if he does not, check out physically, I would not be surprised if teams just don't take him. Like, think about Will Johnson last year. Will Johnson was maybe the top cornerback prospect in the draft, and people thought he was super talented and had the build and had the athleticism and had everything. But teams found this knee injury, and he fell all the way to the mid-second round. It was interesting. I could see a similar situation with Tyson. I'm not sure if he'd fall into the mid-second round, but I would not be shocked if he makes it until the 30s or even early day two. So we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be a weird draft. I even have more weird players in the back half of this draft to break down. A lot of interesting, uh, just prospects here and a lot of interesting people to talk about. So I will have that part two for you guys coming out very, very soon. But in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave a like if you did. Ring that bell. I'll have more videos coming for you very, very soon. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.